this is the hardest question that anybody can ask. It really, 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 really is. I don't want to give you a theological breakdown of this, so I'm gonna I'm I'm gonna tackle it from two different areas. But this question is the hardest one. It really, really is. So let's talk about it. The problem is that we don't take God seriously, and we really only want to play around when we say we love Jesus. That's the problem. Because if we take God seriously, then you ought to be careful about getting a divorce. So if you get a divorce, then the question becomes, can you get remarried? But nobody cares because they got married in the first place to be happy and they got a divorce to be happy. So when it's time to get married again, they just want to be happy again. So they're going to divorce. Nobody consults God's word to see whether or not they're even eligible to get a divorce again, which is why nobody wants to teach about that. Because if you teach about it, then people are going to get mad at you and they're going to leave your church and they're going to say, see, these people just want to hold us back and they just don't want to obey. They just want you to just be hostage and single for the rest of your life. They don't want to do all that. But if you have a high view of the scriptures, then you will count the cost before you get married. Because you know, once you get married, you can't go to the courthouse to get a divorce. You got to go back to God's house to get a divorce because God tells you who and what and when you can get a divorce. Therefore, here's what it really reveals about our hearts. It reveals that we really don't care about God. We care about our own selves, and we're trying to build our own kingdom. We don't care about God's kingdom. That's what it really, really reveals. Nobody wants to say it. Ain't nobody preaching it at nobody's church because they know everybody got married and everybody getting a divorce. Therefore, ain't nobody want to tell you whether or not you can get remarried. And the Bible is clear on who can get remarried and who cannot get remarried. But we get married, you get divorced for irreconcilable differences. I know ain't nobody clapping this up because you don't want to hear this. Because ain't nobody want to hear it because it is too painful of a truth. Well, then we should know it on the front side so that we take the same precaution when we're going to get married to make sure we're getting married to the right person, to make sure that we're ready to give of ourselves when we get married, because God holds this thing at such a high level. The devil only wants to disrupt the Trinity, marriage, and the church. Anywhere it reflects God's unity, the enemy wants to tear it down. And the one that he can do better than all of them, he can't get into the Trinity. So he's going to go after marriages, because that's where God says the two shall become one, just like the Trinity. And in church, that's where a whole bunch of people come together and they're supposed to be on one accord, moving in one direction. That's why the enemy wants to come and destroy churches. That's also why he wants to come and destroy marriages, which is why God has such a high view of marriages. So having said all of that, that is why those of you who are moving toward marriage need to take it very seriously, because God takes it seriously. And you can't just come in and out of marriage when you want. It is clear direction as to what it is. And God says, I hate divorce, which really means I never want to see it ever, ever, ever. But I will allow a couple of cases, but I hate it. And if you can, I want you to make sure you stay married and get a divorce. Now, I'm not trying to beat up nobody. The past is the past. I get it. But you need to know before you get in there again that you need to raise the standard of the scriptures so that you're operating at a high level and not at a level where you just do whatever you want and say, hey, man, that didn't work out. I'm not staying in here. I'm out. Okay. So that's number one. The second segment of it now is, can you and should you get remarried, and can you get married to somebody who has been divorced? The answer is absolutely yes, you can. The Bible has some precautions that I think you should take when you're going to get remarried. But then number two, now you got to say, and you got to realize that since you got divorced one time, it's easier to do it the next time. That's just a fact. It's an option now for you. So since you did it one time, it's easy for you to do it again. Because the reason you did it the first time is because you're not putting up with no foolishness. And foolishness is going to happen in your marriage. So then you've got to, I would ask that you make sure they have proven over time with their behavior, not their mouths, that they see it as how God sees it and they don't want to get on that same path again. Does that make sense, everybody? Does the spirit of that make sense? I hope it does. I'm not trying to say nobody. I just want you to know that God has a high standard for this thing called marriage, and we shouldn't water it down. Okay.